Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate your time and your attention. Tonight's going to be an exciting call. We're going to discuss research that we've been doing for the past year or more. So Solace Life Sciences is a neuroscience company focused on lowering stress and improving sleep quality without drugs. The company is 13 years old, and research is a key part of the scientific discovery, research, and development phase of NuCalm. But again, also for us to understand how this works, why it's important. And then, more importantly, of recent, it has been to satisfy the evaluators of the patent office and the patent process. So historically, dentists have used simple quantified measures to measure the efficacy of NuCalm, including pulse oximetry, heart rate, blood pressure, etc. We've also used with dental practitioners proven, reliable, and valid subjective Likert scales, mostly around the core dental anxiety scale, to determine satisfaction. And internally, we've used some very sophisticated neuroscience equipment, diagnostic tools, to measure the efficacy of NuCalm. So our research historically has included EEGs studied at the CZ, C3, and C4 spots on the head, quantitative EEGs at 32 sites, neurotransmitter lab panels, galvanic skin response, for some of you will know that that is a technology used in lie detector tests, heart rate variability, which we will speak about tonight, measurements of respiratory sinus arrhythmia, blood pulse volume, slow cortical response, and alpha-theta crossovers. Alpha-theta crossovers are interesting because when the frequency of the alpha-theta brainwave function crosses over, it is indicative of hypnagogia, which is a scientific term for losing sense of time and space, which invariably everybody who does NuCalm achieves, and this usually happens within 15 to 20 minutes. But for the purposes of this evening, we are going to review some very important data that's going to basically show why we were given the only patent in the world for systems and methods for balancing and maintaining the health of the human autonomic nervous system. I'm going to repeat this because the depth and breadth of our patent is quite impressive for all associated with this company. NuCalm has been patented as the only system in the world for systems and methods for balancing and maintaining the health of the human autonomic nervous system. And 3 of the claims of the 17 under our patent: number 1, a rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance. Number 2, a sustained parasympathetic nervous system dominance throughout the NuCalm experience. And number 3, a rapid return to full lucidity. What the data tonight will illustrate is the rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance and the sustained parasympathetic nervous system dominance throughout the NuCalm experience. So before we get started, I just would like to educate you a little bit about what we're doing here. Back in June of last year, we purchased the Kubios HRV 2.2 ECG device. This device is attached to each subject's chest and collects 250 data points per second and 15,000 data points per minute. This data is then analyzed using complex nonlinear dynamic frequency domain quantum physics to show key health indicators such as heart rate variability, entropy, and more importantly for NuCalm is sympathovagal balance, which you're going to hear tonight and probably have heard ad nauseum. When we're discussing NuCalm, what we're talking about is autonomic nervous system balance. And sympathovagal is the autonomic nervous system. Sympatho being the sympathetic nervous system, and vagal referring to the vagus nerve, which manages the autonomic nervous system and is dominant in the parasympathetic nervous system response. So, without further ado, let's go to our first data set. Now, the data that we are going to review is arguably some of the most sophisticated statistical biophysical measures of a human autonomic nervous system known to mankind. Why do I say that? I say that because we are using a highly accurate, sensitive, reliable, and valid Kubios HRV 2.2 ECG device, again collecting 15,000 data points per minute. And then we were also working with Harvard Medical School, Dr. C.K. Peng, the world's preeminent statistical biophysicist, who uses the Hilbert-Huang transform algorithm developed by NASA. So what you see in front of you right now is a heart rate variability report of a subject from January 28th. I'm going to move my cursor over what we're going to be talking about here. 3:15 to 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on January the 28th. This subject had the Kubios HRV 2.2 applied to their chest, sat in a classroom filling out paperwork. So it was non-exertive, it was rest, and they were simply sitting there. What we're trying to accomplish here is to establish a baseline assessment of this human being's autonomic nervous system. So we're going to go down here, and in the shaded box is the frequency domain results. So earlier I mentioned that the data, this raw data, is analyzed using nonlinear dynamic quantum physics. This is what I'm talking about. This box here is the FFT spectrum, where the FFT stands for the fast Fourier transform algorithm. The 0, 0 axis point here, where the x and y axis cross, is the sympathetic nervous system. And again, I'm going to use my cursor, and hopefully we can see this all together here. So this pink is the sympathetic nervous system. As we move to the right down the x-axis, and you see 0.01, you see 0.2, 0.3. As we move in this direction to the right, we are moving towards parasympathetic nervous system dominance. So the FFT spectrum is showing the activity of the autonomic nervous system of this subject. We can see a lot of peaks in pink, indicating high sympathetic arousal. The right-hand graph here is the AR spectrum, which shows the volume of activity of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So here we see the volume of activity on the sympathetic side is off the chart. And then the quantified measures that are very important for measuring sympathovagal balance will be underneath the frequency band here. And we're going to be looking at predominantly the total number. So this is the total mass power spectrum. This number is literally a quantified measure of this human being's autonomic nervous system, analogous to a total cholesterol number. So you get your blood drawn, they spit back a total cholesterol number to you. That includes LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and HDL, whereas LDL is a stronger contributor. Therefore, the higher the number for your total cholesterol, the worse it is. Same concept here. The total power spectrum, this number 4099, incorporates the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, whereas the sympathetic nervous system is a higher contributor. Thus, the higher this number, the more stressed out the organism is. This person, on January 28th, shows a mass power spectrum total number of 4,099. This number is about 2 times higher than what we'd like to see from this individual. The second quantified measure that is very important and illustrative of autonomic nervous system balance is the LF over HF. LF stands for low frequency. Remember the pink, and it was heading towards the XY interface? That is the sympathetic nervous system. So low frequency, LF, is the sympathetic nervous system. High frequency, HF, is the parasympathetic nervous system. So the ratio we're looking for is under or at 2 to 1. So again, this person's LF-HF ratio is double what we'd like to see. So the baseline assessment of this patient, and I'm going to close this, you probably can see it, is activity here, high sympathetic arousal, volume of sympathetic activity off the chart, a total mass power spectrum number of 4,099. This is more than double what we want. And an LF-HF ratio of 4.105, again, more than double what we want. So we can assess that this person is highly stressed out. In fact, you could deduce further that this person is suffering from adrenal fatigue and high cortisol overload. I will not keep this a mystery. I will let you know exactly why this person is stressed out. This person is stressed out because this person is dying of stage 4 cancer. In fact, this person is no longer alive. And on January 28th, we were able to present and provide a NuCalm experience to this individual during the treatment at the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Program under the guidance of Dr. Janet Ranicky with the American Health Institute. We have been capturing data with stage 4 cancer patients since October of last year, and about every 3 months we go down to Florida and we do 17 to 21 day treatment plans with NuCalm, and we are measuring the health of the autonomic nervous system. Again, we'll be down there in about 3 weeks. So that's the baseline assessment of this individual. Now let's look at the first 5 minutes on NuCalm. Here's your time signature, 3:30 in the afternoon to 3:35. And let's take a look at the impact NuCalm is having on this person's autonomic nervous system. So right out of the gate, we see the total mass power spectrum has been reduced from 4,099 to 3,444. More importantly, we see that the LF-HF ratio has diminished from over 4 to 2.853. So both of these quantitative indicators show a rapid relaxation response. But I think more impressively and visually, look at this over here. The AR spectrum, remember, this person was off the chart for the baseline assessment here. And look at what we've done to the sympathetic nervous system activity. Completely shut it down. So when we say rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance, this is what we're speaking of. Now comes the mind-blowing experience of NuCalm and the healing aspect of NuCalm. In the fast Fourier transform algorithm spectrum here, this frequency domain, within this first 5 minutes of NuCalm, and I'm moving my cursor over this, at 0.01, my apologies, that is the sweet spot for optimizing a human's biorhythm, meaning that when we can activate the brainstem and the vagus nerve, the heart and the lungs, to diaphragmatically breathe in 10-second increments, we are maximizing the body's oxygenation. So if you want to try this at home and you count to 10, you are going to inhale through your nose on the count of 4. You're going to hold your breath for 2 seconds. You are then going to exhale completely through your mouth on the count of 4. This 10-second breathing pattern is the optimal biorhythm for most human beings. The 0.1 frequency domain here on the x-axis is illustrative or defined as 1 breath every 10 seconds. 6 breaths divided by 60 seconds. That's how the 0.1 is deduced. So when we look at this, we're looking for activity around the 0.1 x-axis. And what we see here is called a resonant meditator's peak. Now, a resonant meditator's peak in the meditation literature is synonymous with 10,000 hours of monastic meditation. So, to achieve this level of healing by sitting down and trying to meditate, we would have to go to a monastery and learn to meditate 2 hours a day for 13 years. Or, if we were very aggressive, we could go to a monastery and meditate for 3 hours a day for 9 years and achieve this level of diaphragmatic breathing, relaxation, and optimal healing through activating the parasympathetic nervous system, activating the heart and the lungs to pump oxygen-rich red blood cells through our entire body. What we are not ever going to claim is that this individual is meditating like a monastic monk. They are not. And for those of you on this call who meditate, you know that the physiological benefit, how you feel after NuCalm, is profound. But the experience of NuCalming is not meditation. Meditation is learning to absolve your mind of thoughts. NuCalm doesn't do that at all. NuCalm separates the emotion from the context, allows your body to heal while your mind is free to wander. Your mind does not shut off. In fact, one would argue that it accelerates and it goes down very nonlinear paths because it's essentially going through the twilight zone of the alpha and theta brainwave function. So we are not saying that with NuCalm you're going to meditate like a monastic monk, but what this data illustrates is that through NuCalm you can achieve cellular homeostatic balance. You can cleanse your cells, you can oxygenate fully, and you can achieve diaphragmatic optimal biorhythm breathing by virtue of doing NuCalm. So using biochemistry and physics, where you're going to present your brain with a beat, your brain is going to follow that beat into the alpha and theta brainwave function. And for those of you who studied in the art of brainwave function, you know that theta is synonymous with restorative sleep. Theta is the only time that your body's cells cleanse themselves. Theta, brainwave function, is when we heal. We need restorative sleep. Unfortunately, between our food sources barely being food anymore and the stress and the pace of our culture around the globe, we are not getting the restorative sleep we need, which is accelerating each and every disease state that we know of, especially autoimmune diseases. So in the first 5 minutes, this stage 4 cancer patient, who arguably is exceptionally fatigued, she is emotionally fatigued, she is physically fatigued and poisoned through chemotherapy and radiated. So her physical makeup is compromised. She is challenged with death being imminent, or at least that's what the medical community states to her. She is fearful. She's emotionally wiped out. She is not sleeping well. She is at the literally end of her rope here. And within 5 minutes, we put her in a place of deep healing. 5 minutes of NuCalm. Let's go to the second 5 minutes. Again, you see 335 to 340. Let's go down the frequency domain results. And here you will see the total number. So remember, we started at 4,099. This is the 5 to 10 minute window of NuCalm. And we have knocked her total mass power spectrum, her autonomic nervous system, down by over 50%, from 4,099 to 1,882. We've also moved her LF-HF ratio, which started above 4, went down to 2, and now it's at 6.3. So this is interesting. And this is an opportunity for us to see what happens, and this seems to be a habitual pattern for most NuCalm experiences. Over here in the AR spectrum, remember, we knocked this down to almost nothing, which is indicative of having very little sympathetic response and total relaxation. Well, it spikes up here. Furthermore, when we look at the FFT spectrum, we look at this activity here. This is indicative of REM sleep. So what happened with this stage 4 cancer patient who was very fatigued, we put the brakes on the adrenal cortex. We allowed her body and mind to relax in those first 5 minutes. Her body and mind being fatigued, suffering from adrenal fatigue, suffering from cortisol overload, and basically in fight or flight most of every day and during her sleep for however long she's been struggling with this disease state, we relaxed her. And by virtue of relaxing her, we gave her body and mind the opportunity and the liberty to fall asleep. Now, intentionally, NuCalm is not designed to have people fall asleep. In fact, you will see repeatedly through all these data sets that when you hover in alpha theta, predominantly in theta, you will optimize your biorhythm, optimize your healing, and optimize your oxygenation. However, we cannot stop a body and a brain from going to sleep if that's what the body and brain needs. And here we see this person fell into REM sleep. So that's the spike in the sympathetic activity. When you fall asleep, there is a spike in sympathetic activity. It's called your body wanting to keep your heart beating while you sleep. Let's now go to the third segment. This is now 3:40 in the afternoon to 3:45. Again, third segment of NuCalm, taking a highly stressed individual, and now we have moved the total mass power spectrum from 4,099 to 858. Quantified, irrefutable evidence of the impact that NuCalm is having on the sympathetic nervous system. Secondarily, we've moved the LF-HF ratio to 2.6, and again, I bring your attention to the AR spectrum, and once again, NuCalm has done what it does very effectively. It has put the brakes on the sympathetic nervous system. Now let's shift our attention to the FFT spectrum over here on the left. Now that you know what to look for, you will see to the left of 0.1 and to the right of 0.1, 2 resonant meditators peaks. This person arguably is getting the optimal healing this person's body can achieve, period. Now, interestingly enough, this is a pattern we see repeatedly through all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data sets that we have using this device and these analytics. Here's the pattern. Rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance, relaxation, putting the brakes on adrenaline. The body, fatigued, falls asleep for a little bit. The body and the brain does not stay asleep. When they come out of sleep, they get picked up into the brain entrainment of the neuroacoustic software of NuCalm, and they are cycled through theta again and optimizing their healing. So this is a very regular pattern we're seeing. Now, for those of you on the phone tonight, many of you have NuCalm for several years. You know exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes when you NuCalm, you fall asleep. You know you fall asleep. Sometimes when you NuCalm, you fall asleep, and you don't even know you fall asleep. But someone in your family might say, hey, you were snoring. Sometimes you fall asleep for a minute. Sometimes you fall asleep for 5. Sometimes you might fall asleep for 17 minutes. In the afternoon when you NuCalm, you will probably NuCalm longer. If you get up early because you have a long day ahead of you and you won't find time to take care of yourself, you probably won't fall asleep. Morning NuCalm sessions typically are between 28 to 35 minutes. Afternoon NuCalm sessions, when your biorhythm naturally wants to take a rest, might be anywhere from 40 minutes to 50 minutes. And the more fatigued you are, the more stressed out your autonomic nervous system is, the longer you will be in the healing properties of NuCalm. So this is a very, very predictable pattern. Relaxation, fall asleep, come out of sleep, deep relaxation. Let's move to the 4th segment of this person's experience on NuCalm. And it's just unbelievable here. We started, remember, 20 minutes prior at 4,099. We are now down to 365. So please keep in mind something very important. A total mass power spectrum of 0 is death. You have to have sympathetic tone if you would like your heart to beat. And your heart needs to beat if you'd like to stay alive. Here, the LFHF ratio is at 2.8. So here's what we can see. In the prior 5-minute segment, we had a tremendous amount of diaphragmatic breathing and healing, 2 resonant meditators peaks, and optimal diaphragmatic breathing. Here we have some activity, but we also have another spike in the sympathetic nervous system. So here it indicates at some point, probably towards the latter end of this 5-minute segment, that this person again dozed off a little bit. Just into REM, but still dozed. Now let's look at the 5th segment of NuCalm. This is the 20 to 25 minute. And we'll see here, total mass power spectrum, quantified irrefutable evidence of the impact NuCalm has on the autonomic nervous system is from 4,099 to 297. You can see that we've reduced this activity here again, and more importantly, we've optimized the healing properties once again. And now let's go to the last 5-minute segment of NuCalm for this individual. And now that you know what you're looking for, you have an LFHF ratio of 1.753. We have some sleep activity here on the right, but we know here from looking at hundreds of these data sets and looking at sleep data that this is exactly REM sleep. So 30-minute NuCalm experience, and I will tell you that this was not an ideal setup. We took 26 stage 4 cancer patients. We educated them for an hour on what NuCalm was going to do. We had them fill out paperwork. We applied the single lead ECG to their chest. We then sat them in a classroom upright in a plastic chair, head leaning against a chalkboard, and this female patient achieved deep cellular homeostatic balance, meditative physiological benefit, diaphragmatic breathing within 5 minutes, completely putting the brakes on the adrenal cortex, on the stress response, and helping her balance. That is one data set. Let's now move to another data set. We have the liberty, the opportunity, and the privilege to also be capturing data on another like population. This population are professional athletes. So for 8 weeks, we captured data on Chicago Blackhawks players this year in February, March, and April. And I'm going to show you one of the players' autonomic nervous system. Now, let's look at the baseline assessment here, and this is 4:23 in the afternoon to 4:38. And what we have in front of us is a professional athlete, star player for the Chicago Blackhawks, and a very, very high mass power. 8,290. Now remember, stage 4 cancer, female, struggling to stay alive, was at 4,099. We have a professional athlete here at 8,290. Now what we didn't know at the time when this data was submitted was that this person was suffering from an injury. Now we knew something was up because we've been capturing data every day from these players, and typically this athlete in particular, we knew his starting heart rate was 49 to 53. You can see here his starting heart rate in this NuCalm session is 67. Let me move that out of here. 67.33. So we knew something was up, and then when we interviewed him and shared with him the data, we found out that he had an upper body injury, and you can see the inflammation response. You can see what it means not to be on the ice. You can see when you're left to your own devices, worrying about your family, your friends, your travel schedule, your contract year, all the things that impact an athlete on a daily basis. When they can't get on the ice and perform their job, they are highly stressed out. This athlete was highly stressed out upon this day where he chose the NuCalm. This is 2.446 LF-HF ratio, which is very good, but this is alarmingly high. So let's look at the first 5 minutes on NuCalm for this gentleman, and this is on March 1st, 2015. We go from 8,000 to 1,446. Again, rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance. NuCalm does not discriminate. It doesn't say, hey, you have stage 4 cancer, we need to take better care of you. Or it doesn't say, hey, you're a multi-million-dollar professional hockey player, we don't need to take as good care of you. It doesn't matter. If you have ears that work, if your heart is beating and your lungs work, NuCalm will do what it is intended to do. This is not hypothesis. This is not what if. This is biochemistry and physics. Very simple, logical path. We are going to use chemical signaling through the dietary supplements and the cranial electrotherapy stimulation, and we're going to use electrical signaling through the frequency following response neuroacoustic software embedded in classical music, and we are going to put the brakes on adrenaline, balance the autonomic nervous system, and allow the body to heal, period. So first 5 minutes, drop this mass power spectrum down to 1446. We see some meditative activity here, so we know literally within the first 5 minutes, this person is starting to achieve optimal healing, managing the biorhythm. Let's go to the second 5 minutes, and you're starting to get an understanding of what we're looking at here. Number one, this is beyond impressive. We have taken an individual who was highly stressed out at over 8,200 total mass power spectrum, and within the 5 to 10 minute window, we have knocked it down to 267. Furthermore, we're achieving great balance in the LF-HF ratio, the sympathovagal balance, and that is under a 1-to-1 ratio at 0.901. Here we see some activity, but it appears, based on this spike in sympathetic activity here and here, that this person is starting to doze a little bit. So again, fatigued, stressed out. When we put the brakes on, the body says, hey, I'm fatigued, I'm going to go to sleep. Third segment, sleeping. Here's your spike in the sympathetic activity, your VLF spike here. We've moved up from 200 to 2,603. Our LF-HF balance here is decent at 1.597, though it's moved up a little bit. He is sleeping. So again, the body needs what it needs. It demands rest. It's going to get rest. Now let's look at the fourth segment on NuCalm. And here we see some activity, but we also still see some sleep. So he's basically hovering between theta brainwave function and falling asleep. So in and out of REM, we've all been there before. We kind of know how it feels. Sometimes we wake ourselves up with a snort or something, but he's literally levitating just above sleep, slipping into sleep, just above sleep, slipping into sleep. And that's his NuCalm pattern on this particular afternoon. Let's look at the next segment, and now we've knocked him down to relaxation. He's not sleeping here. He is relaxing fully. Very impressive total number and very impressive LF-HF ratio. You can see here his HF is at 139 over his LF here. So that is exceptional. Here we can see exceptional healing properties here around the 0.1 diaphragmatic breathing frequency domain. Good for him. And let's look at the last segment of his NuCalm experience. Again, started out at 8,200 total mass power spectrum. We've knocked him down. We kept him down. He fell asleep a few times. His LF-HF ratio is at 0.5. Very healthy experience in NuCalm. So with the research we're doing with the Chicago Blackhawks, we have several luxuries. Number one, they got started with us in June of 2012. Number two, they have accelerated down the path and down the adoption curve. They started with 6 systems. By the time they made the playoffs that year, they had 12 systems, and by the time they made it to the Western Conference Finals against the Los Angeles Kings, they had 18 systems. This year, they started out in the preseason with 24 systems, one NuCalm system for each player. So what we know is who has been using this on a regular basis, and this individual that I'm showing you has been using NuCalm on a regular basis. So one thing we know when we look at repeated use of NuCalm, and this is very intuitive, the more you NuCalm, the more your body understands how to naturally relax. The same thing would hold true for other mindfulness practices. If you're into meditation, the more you meditate, the easier it gets. It still may not be very predictable sometimes, but it gets easier. Same thing with yoga, Tai Chi, etc. Same principle here. The more these folks NuCalm, the faster their body will respond to the need to relax and the opportunity to relax. And for those of you on the call tonight who NuCalm on a regular basis, those first few minutes of hearing the NuCalm neuroacoustic software, you know where you're going. It's almost like this anticipatory joy and peace because you're like, hey, I can't wait to get to that place where I'm just nothing. Literally feel like a puddle in my bed. So this is a professional athlete. Now, we learn the most from extremes, and that's why we've chosen 2 very different populations. We have chosen stage 4 cancer folks and their support network who are arguably going through one of the most difficult times in the course of their life. And 2, we're working with professional athletes who arguably are the most balanced and healthiest specimens on the planet. Let's now look at another data set. And again, this is from May the 6th of this year. And this again is with the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Program under the guidance of the American Health Institute. And this is a stage 4 cancer patient. This is a morning session. The first time this person has ever NuCalmed. This is at 9:03 to 9:18. Let's look at the baseline assessment. We see a total mass power spectrum here of 3,999, highly stressed, adrenal fatigue, cortisol overload. Obvious. We'd expect that. Here in the AR spectrum, we see a lot of volume of sympathetic activity. Here we see some parasympathetic. We see a lot of sympathetic, and the LF-HF ratio is 3.227. So again, we have a starting baseline of a human being who is suffering from adrenal fatigue, who is suffering from cortisol overload, who arguably is suffering an emotional consequence of being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, trying to fight it. And this person, personally, I know, has 5 children, a lot to live for, and wants to fight, has a very strong spirit, but she is stressed out. It is very difficult, I think, when you're going through a terminal illness to not be stressed out, to be able to escape, to be able to get the rest your body needs. One of the key elements why NuCalm is so important for disease fighting is the opportunity to simply put the brakes on. When your body is in fight or flight all of the time, it never gets to rest. And earlier we spoke of the need for theta brainwave function and restorative sleep. When you are in fight or flight all the time, you are not getting theta brainwave function and restorative sleep. Thus, your cells are not getting the opportunity to clean themselves, the typical maintenance of the cellular structure, and your body is never getting the optimal healing it needs, which ironically is accelerating your death. So a person has cancer. They go through chemotherapy, which is poisoning them. They're going through radiation. They're physically compromised. They are emotionally fatigued. They're psychologically worn out. And furthermore, in addition to all of the things that face them, they are not getting any rest because they can't turn off the fight or flight mechanism. NuCalm turns off the fight or flight mechanism. It does that exceptionally well and very predictably. The patent office would not have awarded the only patent in the world for systems and methods for balancing and maintaining the health of the human autonomic nervous system if it did not work, if we did not present a high level of accurate, sensitive, irrefutable evidence such as you see before you right now. So again, baseline assessment, highly stressed individual. This is on May 6th of this year. Let's go to the first 5-minute segment of NuCalm, and you already know predictably what's going to happen. We have knocked down the total mass power spectrum from 3,999 to 729 in the first 5 minutes of the first exposure of NuCalm to this individual. We've also knocked the LF-HF ratio down to 1.62, and we can see a lot of activity around the 0.1 diaphragmatic optimal biorhythm here. So in 5 minutes, we took all of the worries, all of the expectations, all of the fear, and we've just put it to rest and said, your body is going to rest. Let's go to the next 5-minute segment. What do we see here? We see that the total power is down to 597, and the LF-HF ratio is at 0.871. We see that the sympathetic activity, the tone and volume of activity, has diminished significantly, and we see a little balance between maybe a little sleep here, just a little, slight doze, maybe 30 seconds or something, and then here's your parasympathetic activity. So you can see here that this person is getting very, very good restorative rest and healing, basically by turning off the sympathetic nervous system, turning off stress and allowing the body to do what it's intended to do. Here, third segment, we're down to 456 total mass power, and we're at a LF-HF ratio of 0.692. Again, good balance here, very little activity here. So she is in a very, very sweet spot of healing. Her HF number at 213, the magnitude of that number is significant. That's a very, very powerful parasympathetic nervous system dominant experience for her. So these first 3 segments are exceptional. Now she hits some resident meditators' peaks and a little bit of a spike here in sympathetic activity. So again, she may be hovering, just touching some REM sleep coming out of it. This is the 4th segment of NuCalm. Let's go to the 5th segment. This is minutes 20 to 25. Again, so when we say rapid descent into parasympathetic nervous system dominance, we see that every time. It doesn't matter who you are. What we also see is a sustained parasympathetic nervous system dominance. And you see that from every data point we're going to show. It's the same pattern. Once we take the brakes or put the brakes on the stress response, you stay there. And then your body decides, do I need to sleep or do I not need to sleep? Do I need to heal? Do I need to sleep? That's the only decision making that happens once we put the brakes on, and we put the brakes on almost immediately. So again, this is the fifth segment, same activity, very strong LF-HF balance here, good total power spectrum. This is now the sixth segment, and finally, some significant REM. So 30 minutes here. So her body, maybe she meditates, I don't know, but she was able to achieve, sustain a deeply physiological cellular homeostatic balance here for the first 30 minutes of her first exposure to NuCalm. Now, it also could be indicative of the time of day. So 9 o'clock in the morning, we're less apt to fall asleep early on in the NuCalm experience. But regardless, at the 30th minute here, she falls into a REM sleep pattern here. Let's go down to the seventh segment. And good activity here. Total power at 1315. LF-HF ratio at 1. So again, great healing properties here for this individual. Same thing. Total power, 565. So you see the pattern here. Again, it's time and time again through hundreds of data sets and 2 specific audiences, stage 4 cancer and professional athletes. Let's look at the same person on day 2. So with the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Program, we are NuCalming people for up to 19 times in a 21-day period. That's part of the treatment protocol we're doing. There's a lot of other things going on, but we know, and everybody on this call knows, when you NuCalm that night with 100% predictability, you will sleep very well. It's difficult to articulate improved sleep quality, but you know what I'm talking about, meaning that you sleep through the night. If you don't sleep through the night and you need to get up and urinate around 3 o'clock, when you get back to your bed, you have no difficulty falling asleep again. That's the quality of sleep we're talking about. So what do you think happens to somebody who is dying of stage 4 cancer, is in fight or flight, is compromised through chemotherapy and radiation, is struggling to stay alive, and is fearful, emotionally, psychologically struggling, and tries NuCalm the first time, and then that night sleeps well? Well, intuitively, you would expect the second day when they come in for NuCalm around the same time that their starting stress point will be lower. So let's see. This is 9 o'clock the second day. The first time this person did NuCalm was around 9 o'clock on the first day. Remember, they came in at total mass power spectrum of 3,999. Let's look at day 2, starting point. Kapow. 1,172. So for those of you who NuCalm on a regular basis, you already know what's happening. You are physiologically changing by virtue of us stopping this cycle of stress, 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 poor sleep, poor sleep, poor sleep, poor sleep, stress, 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 poor sleep, poor sleep, poor sleep. We're stopping that pattern. We're reversing it. We're giving you stress management. We're lowering your stress without drugs. And more importantly, we're helping you with restorative sleep. So we are reversing this pattern, and we're giving you the benefit of autonomic nervous system balance. And over the course of time, longitudinally, you will notice a difference in several things. 1, you will notice a difference in how you react to stress. NuCalm will help build resilience to the stress response. Number 2, you will notice that you have an improved amount of energy, focus, and productivity because you're getting the restorative sleep that you weren't getting, and most people don't get. As we get older, as we assume more responsibility, as we have children, as we continue to self-medicate with alcohol, barbiturates, benzodiazepines, we are messing with our biochemistry and, more importantly, the GABAergic system. And the GABA A receptor site is very important for shutting our brain off and allowing us to go to sleep. So the NuCalm experience is going to help correct our ability to manage stress and improve our sleep quality, which will in turn help us fight anything we need to fight. Stage 4 cancer, professional athlete, airline pilot, dentist, dental patient, doesn't matter. It will put you in a position of health and wellness, in a position to be successful, productive, focused, happy, emotionally balanced, etc. So we knew before we even saw this data that this data would look like this. Why? Because when these 26 subjects came through that door on day 2, you almost couldn't recognize them. They got sleep. They looked incredible. So we knew. I said, hey, this did what it was intended to do, not surprisingly, and they felt great, and they were very excited to try it again, and they did. So this person on day 2, just the second day ever of doing NuCalm, came in 67% lower stress response than the first day when we did the baseline assessment. First 5 minutes of NuCalm, what did we do? Well, what do you think we did? We knocked it down again from 1,177 to 418. And see here, really quick to get that brain entrainment in the resident meditators peaks. So the first time you NuCalm, for many people who have locus of control issues, and many of us want to stay in control, especially in contemporary society when it's easy to feel out of control with the advent of technology and the accelerated pace of our life. First time you NuCalm, you don't know what to expect, which is yet another sad indictment of our culture. We should understand what relaxation feels like. We shouldn't have this massive expectation of some journey or some joyride. It's simply relaxation. But many of us don't know what that feels like, me included. So the first time you NuCalm, many of us can't relinquish that control. We're trying to analyze what's happening. We're trying to figure it out. And before we know it, someone's taking us out of NuCalm. We think we've been in there for 10 minutes when we've been in there for 45 minutes. So that first time you NuCalm, we're doing a couple things. One, we're level setting your expectation to understand what relaxation feels like. And number 2, we're beginning to train your brain and body to be able to relax. And we can see that right here in this pattern. Day 2, this person starts at 67% less stress because they had a good NuCalm experience in day 1 and they slept well that night. Number 2, this person quickly puts the brakes on the adrenal cortex and the stress response and achieves resonant meditators peaks and optimal biorhythm healing right out of the gate, first 5 minutes. Let's look at the second 5 minutes. And again, same pattern. Good meditative activity, optimal biorhythm, connecting the vagus nerve and the brainstem with the heart and the lungs, and pumping oxygen-rich red blood cells to the entire body and brain. Here, the total mass power spectrum is down to 430, LFHF ratio, and very healthy, very balanced 1.5. Let's look at the third segment of NuCalm, Kapow, very powerful resonant meditators peak, LFHF ratio at 1.8, total power spectrum at 1,000. Same pattern, rapid descent, sustained parasympathetic nervous system throughout. Here we have some sleep activity. So this here is illustrative of the REM sleep activity. And this is the fourth segment of NuCalm, second day. And you see the LFHF ratio. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we see with the most sophisticated quantified measures of research known using a single lead ECG device developed at Kubios HRV 2.2, capturing 15,000 data points per minute, then using sophisticated mathematical algorithms and complex nonlinear dynamic frequency domain quantum physics. We are showing the quantified, irrefutable impact that NuCalm has on the autonomic nervous system. Again, systems and methods for balancing and maintaining the health of the human autonomic nervous system. So a few takeaways from the data that we see every single day. And we have over 50 of these ECG devices, and we have research going on all over the United States with this. And we see the same type of pattern. Number one, it does not matter who you are. NuCalm does not discriminate who you are. It does not care. It uses biochemistry, physics, and neurophysiology to rapidly put the brakes on the stress response, a rapid descension into parasympathetic nervous system dominance, allowing your body to rest, to heal, to restore and rejuvenate. Your mind will not shut off. It is a free flow of a wandering mind, basically allowing your mind to go where it wants to go. You could actually equate it to dream state of alpha, first stage of sleep. Number two, on the NuCalm experience, you will have a sustained parasympathetic nervous system dominant response. The more you NuCalm, the healthier autonomic nervous system will be. The more you NuCalm, the more improved your sleep quality will be, further helping your wellness. The more you NuCalm, the less time you will need to NuCalm. If you NuCalm in the morning, you will probably not fall asleep. You will feel your respiration slow down. You will feel the gravitational pull on your body, and your body will feel heavy. Your mind will not shut off. It will wander like crazy. You'll go through your to-do list, and you'll have nonlinear thinking patterns. But your body will be restoring. If you NuCalm in the afternoon, when your body's natural biorhythm wants to take a rest, you invariably will fall asleep in and out of REM. When you fall into REM, whether you know it or not, when you come out of REM, based on these patterns that we see, you will have optimal healing and deep relaxation. The more you NuCalm, the more your body understands how to relax and will be entrained faster. So for many of us on this phone and many of our executive team and medical advisors who have been NuCalming for several years, it takes us a couple minutes to go from high stress, it doesn't matter what we're going through, to deep relaxation, period. And it doesn't matter if you are a professional athlete. It doesn't matter if you are a long-haul airline pilot. It doesn't matter if you're you, me, your dental patient, your spouse, your kid. It doesn't matter if you have Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, neurodegenerative diseases, fibromyalgia, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, addictive disease, or stage 4 cancer. It does the same thing to every human being that can hear, that has a heart that is beating, and that has lungs that work. So thank you very much for allowing us to share with you some very complex data. I know that it was a lot of information. That is the purpose of us recording this. I know that it is very sophisticated. I know that you may want to go back and review this, but you're going to see the same thing we're all going to see and all the leading scientists keep seeing. It doesn't matter what tools you use to evaluate NuCalm. It has an exceptional predictability, and it simply does what it does. So for yourself, for your patients, for people within your business, and more importantly, for the friends and family that you love and hold dear to you, have them NuCalm. The alternative would be to go to a monastery and meditate with monks 3 hours a day for 9 years, or 2 hours a day for 13 years, or to learn to be a Tai Chi master or a yogic. Those are great. If you have the time, discipline, and energy to do it, do it. But if you don't, and you're like most of us, and you need a tool to take care of yourself, to help with focus, to help with emotional balance, to help to be present in the moment without judgment, to be available for your friends, your family, yourself, your kids, NuCalm. 30 minutes of NuCalm will create an exceptionally predictable, powerful, productive day and a great night of restorative sleep. So give that gift to yourself. And when things get crazy or you're engaged in conflict resolution or emotions are dictating your decision-making, take a minute, say, hey, I'm going to go NuCalm for 30 minutes. When I get up, I know I'll be performing better, and people will want to be around me. So thank you again very much for your time. It's always a pleasure. It's not easy to do a unilateral presentation over the phone looking into a computer, and I appreciate your time and attention. I know everybody is busy, and I hope you enjoyed this data, and keep on NuCalming. Thanks again. Take care of yourself.